Hello there, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is ChitChad and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster, where we are working on a studio theme park. In this episode, we're going to be focusing on the entry point and the ticket booths once again, because I'm not gonna lie, I think I bit off a little more than I could chew in the last episode working on this port of entry and then moving on to the ticket booth and the entrance building to the park, because it could use a little bit of refinement. So in this episode, we are going to be focusing primarily on that, because I did get a little bit of feedback on the last episode, which I did take to heart, because I totally agree. Currently, the ticket booths are kind of obstructing the view to the entry gate to the park, and the entry gate's supposed to be kind of like this big grand thing, and you don't want the ticket booths to kind of ruin that visual, you know? So in this episode, we are going to be spacing things out just a little bit, giving more room for people to actually walk and get into the theme park itself. So as you can see, I am currently moving things around, including the entry points, so everyone's kind of like booking it out of there, which is unfortunate, but you know what? All good things come to those who wait, so don't you worry. This will be a full-fledged theme park sooner or later. Hopefully sooner rather than later. We got to get this stuff done. I'm actually really excited because I've recorded multiple episodes kind of back to back so that I could kind of plan out the episodes a little bit more. And the next few are going to be really fun because we're going to be working on a Main Street area. It's going to be kind of a cross between like the City Walk at Universal Studios and the Main Street of Disneyland. It's going to be combining like both the aesthetics. And it's fun, especially in the next episode. We work on a like an old style cinema theater, and it's going to be in the style of the Steamboat Willie Theater at Disneyland. Which, if you've never been inside of it, it's actually really cool because you go inside and it looks like an old style theater with like turnstiles and like a ticket person, even though I think it's just like a mannequin. And once you go inside there, they're playing like old school Mickey cartoons, like the black and white Mickey cartoons on a loop. And it's just kind of cool. So we're going to kind of replicate that in the next episode. One of the things I did notice is that this kind of entryway needed to be just a bit taller to kind of really help sell that visual like spectacle. And like I said, I'm kind of taking both Universal Studios California and Universal Studios Florida as the overall like what's the best word I could use? The homage that I'm trying to pay, and I want to combine because there are aspects of both those parks that I really enjoy. So kind of bringing them together is going to be fun. And there's properties from Universal Studios that are no longer around as theme park attractions, which would be really fun to visit as theme park rides. I can think of one in particular that I'm still to this day a little sad isn't around anymore, and that's the Back to the Future ride. And Planet Coaster just so happens to have Back to the Future assets that you can buy as one of their small DLC packages. So, may just have to consider a Back to the Future ride. It's one of my all-time favorite trilogies, and I still enjoy watching it to this day. I would have to say the second one's probably still my favorite out of the three. And I think that's just because I like their interpretation of the future. It's like this really like it's like a retro future, you know, and it's just a lot of fun. So one of the other things that I also did was add additional roads leading from the port of entry to the ticket booths, because someone did mention in the last episode that the foot traffic might get a tad congested. So I decided to add two more walkways, which is always problematic right now whenever I add something to this port of entry because of the circular nature of it. That was quite the I mean, I'm sure there are expert builders out there that probably was like, oh, no problem, and just make it on the fly. But like for me, doing something this big in a circle, it was just like, oh my goodness, it was such a headache. I think I time-lapsed the last video a little bit faster than I normally do. Just because it took so long to place each wall independently. And then originally there was like a ton more lights on there, which you can see I'm deleting some right now, just because it was like obnoxiously bright originally, and I didn't want there to be like a ton of lights. I'm telling you, one of the things that is always such a fight is developing the terrain when it's butted up against a walkway. And then you have to like delete the walkway to kind of get the terrain to work right, because if the terrain is right next to a walkway, it kind of it gets like really sharp geometry when you try to push it down, and it just doesn't look that good. So it's one of those things where like you could be super proud building a pathway, then all of a sudden you have to delete it all. because the terrain's not being cooperative. So I wanted to create some larger pillars, and the main reason for this, it's not purely for just aesthetics, it's also to help hide some of the errors, some of the gaps in the geometry. And one of the things I was having a little bit of trouble like trying to find something that would fill that much space, so we ended up having to duplicate a number of items to build a much larger column than is currently supported in the game. And you'll see I was trying to find all sorts of different like tops that could go on it. At one point I was like, oh, the burger bun, if only we could recolor it, gosh darn it. Because it's better than just like the normal geometric shapes, because it has that slight bevel to the edges of the burger. So you'll see I'm like trying all sorts of different items, and everything is like either too big or too small, and there's nothing that was just right. I forget what I eventually ended up with, and it's funny because I'm watching this, you know, it's like I'm watching this as with new eyes, because it's been so long since I've recorded this episode. Because like I said, I've been recording a lot of episodes in the background while I've been simultaneously playing the new Jurassic World Evolution game, which I'm actually having a really fun time with. And I do notice that the Planet Coaster content on this channel does get a fair amount of views, but if you do have time and you want to support the channel, if you can, I would really appreciate it if you check out like my other content, just because it does help support the channel. And especially because I am not always able to produce the Planet Coaster content, it just takes a little bit longer, you know. These videos are like time-lapsed, and they're like 7 times the normal speed, and I love this game. It can be dangerous sometimes. Like the other night when I was recording, I started working on a coaster, believe it or not. Like, oh my gosh, working on a coaster and playing a coaster? It's been a long time, believe it or not. And I didn't realize how late it got. It was like almost 2 in the morning, and I was like, oh, I gotta go to sleep. I work tomorrow. And that's what this game does to me. You just kind of lose track of time. And I'm getting the same with the Jurassic World Evolution game. It's a lot of fun. I do hope that there's more unlockables in the future for that game, or maybe potential DLC, because Frontier's been amazing about adding new DLC to all of their this game in particular. I don't know why I said all their games. Maybe that statement will be true when they add DLC to Jurassic World, which I'm really hoping, because that would be great. My one concern is that because we have Jurassic World Evolution, that means we'll never get like dinosaur animatronics in this game. And that would be a bummer, because I really, really, really want dinosaur animatronics. Because, I mean, obviously a lot of people would want to build a Jurassic Park in this game, but it would also be cool because if I do a Back to the Future ride, it would be kind of cool to pay homage to the original ride, because you do at some point go back in time to like the age of the dinosaurs, but like you get swallowed by a T-Rex, and the T-Rex is like ridiculously oversized. It's really humorous. Because you end up like flying into its mouth, I think. It's been a long time, because that ride's been gone for I don't even know how many years now. I love The Simpsons, but I don't know. I would have kept if I had a choice, I would have kept Back to the Future. And that's mainly because I like Simpsons, but I think I'm more of a Futurama fan. Speaking these columns, man, I finally got something to work and look right, and I decided to add some plants inside of it just to kind of not only hide the seam lines, but just give this area like a bit more. I want to really focus on the greenery, you know. I really want to have a lot of plants, and I want to build custom planters, and you will see, I think, not in the next episode, but the episode after that, like we do a lot of work with just plants and placement of trees, particularly palm trees, because again, it's supposed to be like a city walk / main street. Yeah, so I'm curious, because this is something I think about a lot, and I've watched a lot of YouTube channels like Defunct Land and Yesterworld, and I always like watching videos on rides that used to be around but are no longer, and just kind of like the history over those rides. I find that stuff like really entertaining, and just the history of some of this stuff, like how it was made, or you know how many iterations it had to go through. But I guess my question is, what ride that, if you could pick one ride to kind of resurrect and bring back, what would it be and why? Let's just call that the question of the day, you know? And speaking of questions, I have a Discord, believe it or not. There are a couple of channels on that Discord, including Planet Coaster, Art, Animation. But there's also an Ask section where you can ask me questions in relation to this park or my Mario park that I'm working on, and I will answer some of them on the show. So if you want me to potentially answer one of your questions, just feel free to check out the Discord. The link to it is in the description down below. All right, and speaking of the Discord, I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. So we've got one from Wretched Will. They ask, or it kind of starts off as a statement first, so I'll just read it as is. I have watched Over the Garden Wall before, and it's actually really good, and it's the perfect material for a dark ride, but will the ride be in a main street-like building or a studio building? It's totally your decision, but I think having a load of dark rides hidden in a village of some kind like Fantasyland and Disney World would be really cool. You know what? I totally agree with you, and that's something that's interesting, because if you look at Universal Studios, some of the rides are themed to look like they're a part of that particular IP's universe. Like they look like like when you go to Harry Potter, like it looks like you're in Harry Potter, but there are some of the other rides or like shows that look like they're a part of like a studio building. For example, they kind of make the exterior of the Mummy look more like a studio facade, or the Twister, or what was the Twister show that was replaced a long time ago, but they made that look more like a Hollywood facade. And I think I'm gonna have kind of a combo of each of them like Universal does. Sometimes I will have the movie studio look, and other times I'll make it look like it's a part of that universe. And I think for Over the Garden Wall, which is one of the projects I want to work on for this park particularly, or in particular, is definitely probably going to be like it came from that universe, just because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to explore their visual aesthetic in that manner. And speaking of visuals, there were a lot of suggestions for what we should name the park in the previous video, but one stuck out to me the most, and that is Chatterbox Studios. I think because the community, the Discord community, is called Chatterbox, and I like to think of all of you as fellow Chatterboxes, that we call it that. It works because it's more of like a it involves more than just me, you know, and I think it's more inviting in that way. So Chatterbox Studios is going to be the name of this park, so I'll probably be changing the name of the previous video so it doesn't just call it the Studios Park. We'll call it the Chatterbox Studios Park. So again, I'm actually really excited about that. And I wanted to kind of make this logo in the style of the Universal Studios logo. Not 100%, because, you know, obviously they use the globe and we're going to use a box, but you know what I mean. It's kind of similar. It's geometric in that fashion. So while I'm working on the logo, I'm going to answer one other question from the Discord, and this one is from JPS Ninja. JPS Ninja asks, I was always curious what your PC specs were, or if it was bought online or from a store. Thank you, JPS Ninja, for your question, and also thank you again to Wretched Will for your question. I actually had this computer custom built by my good friend Josh, and then I had it modified from there by another good friend named Bernard, and we've kind of swapped parts out and different things and upgraded it slowly over time. So it is a custom built machine. It's running Windows 10, it's got a 64-bit operating system, 16 gigs of RAM, and it's got an Intel i7 processor, and it's got an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 graphics card. So it's a beast. I still want to upgrade it a bit more in the future, probably give it a little bit more RAM, and I do have the capacity inside of the machine to run a second graphics card, which would be kind of cool. I would like to eventually at some point be able to record and render these videos out at 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second. Just because when I see the 60 frames per second videos, they just look really smooth and clean and they look great. And I want to be able to provide that for my audience at some point in the future. But right now I'm running this machine and I love it. I'm so grateful for the people that helped me get this thing set up. Which if Bernard or Josh, if you're watching this, or even Guy, because I remember my friend Guy coming over and helping me troubleshoot this machine when I was having some problems with it, which ended up being incompatible RAM. Thank you to all three of you, and just a general thank you in general for all the support. I really appreciate it. So we're actually getting close to the end of this video as we drop in the Chatterbox Studios logo. Like I said, in the next episode, we are going to be working on the Main Street / Studio Street / Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but it's going to be really fun because the building, like I said, is going to be an old style theater. And that episode will actually be coming out pretty shortly. In fact, I aim to get it up on the channel by this weekend, so you get a double dose of Planet Coaster, because I don't think there was a Planet Coaster this previous week, so that's gonna hopefully make up for that. But we're gonna be jumping into the final looks of the entry point, and I will chat with you on the next episode.